Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the program. Hi, it's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It is Tuesday, June 30th, 2026, and here we are, ready to talk about everything that's happening in the world of video games and whatever's going on around them. It feels very precarious. I mean, I guess it has for a long time. Today is the last day of the fiscal year. And so that is the all of the kind of layoff stories have been around the idea of just like, okay, all the layoffs are going to happen after the end of fiscal. And that's today. So, we'll see where the world takes us from here, I suppose. But it does feel a little bit like there's like a staring into a void. I don't know. It's a questionable feeling. Speaking of staring into a void, Koei Tecmo re-released Dead or Alive 6 Last Round, they're calling it. And people are unhappy because it's a real they didn't do anything to I'm still trying to figure out. So they like deprecated the existing version of DOA 6 on Steam in favor of this upcoming new release. Which was released in a form of like, okay, there's a free-to-play version where you can play as like 4 characters, and then there's a bundle of characters you can buy, and then a lot of costumes, hundreds of dollars of DLC. The fun part is some of the DLC from the previous version transfers over, and some of it does not. All of that is like various forms of like bikini and maid and nurse outfits and all that other shit, right? But also some of it doesn't transfer over, and like you can buy it again. And they put in like, yeah, it's got like Kula from King of Fighters in it, and that's neat or whatever. But like, it's DOA 6. It doesn't look like they improved the netcode. So it doesn't look like something where they went like, oh, and now it's got rollback. It's like, no, it's just kind of the same thing again. Like visually, it looks like this weirdly blurry, almost low res kind of thing. And like it's just a really strange release. I don't know. Like this looked like a strange release prior to it coming out. Where you're like, oh, why are they shifting from? It's still DOA 6. It doesn't seem like they're making any meaningful changes, or nothing they're announcing makes it sound like that they're doing anything major to it. Why are they doing this? It's not like they're adding rollback. It's not like they're adding crossplay. It's just a really did some license expire? Like someone's gonna find some like middleware that changed or something. Go, oh, they didn't want to pay the wise people. They didn't want to pay their font bill. They went on to pay for what Monotype or whatever the hell the font company that all the Japanese companies use, or something like that. But I don't know. It seems like that they refreshed some of the licenses for like the DLC characters are back, like the Kula and that stuff. I think got yanked out at some point or whatever the deal is. But yeah, it's a very Fontworks, yes, not Monotype, yes, Fontworks, that's right. Is the typeface company. Yes, it's a very strange release. I would be very open to a new Dead or Alive game, much like just about any fighting game, really, from any of these kind of major franchises. Like Dead or Alive is a relatively fun fighting game, but DOA 6 is maybe not the best one. They introduced some just weird mechanics, like some weird kind of mashy mechanics of like, oh, you just, mash out this button 4 times and it'll kind of chain into a super. And like that stuff's not terrible. It is terrible when you are facing off in the confines of their kind of shitty netcode. So, all of it taken together, it is certainly not the best Dead or Alive has ever been. And yeah, I think they will at some point make another one, but it's a very strange release. People are not happy about it. The handful of people that probably bought some chunk of that DLC are like, what the fuck? You You want me to rebuy some of it? It's a very it's a very strange situation. Also, kind of on the game front, Nintendo released Star Fox for the Switch 2. Pardon me. And this has been an interesting week for me with Star Fox stuff. It's been interesting to kind of revisit the original Star Fox 64, which I did on Friday as part of the launch of ranking every Nintendo 64 game. And I had played some of the Star Fox remake prior to revisiting Star Fox 64. And I think, like I've come away from it feeling a lot better about that game in general. I still think that I don't like the length of that game. I don't like I guess it's less the length. I don't like the structure of Star Fox 64. I don't think that's a game that really truly benefits from its multiple path design. People try to say like, oh, it's like Outrun or After, or Afterburner Climax or whatever, where you can kind of take these kind of branching paths. I'm like, yeah. Yes, it does have that. The ways you take the paths are sometimes a little bit more esoteric than just going left or right. But I think that game is like criminally short, and I don't think it's like enjoyable enough to go back into and like hunt for the side stuff. And these days, all of that is kind of a known quantity. You can just go look it up or whatever. But to keep it holistic here for a minute and talk about the stuff that's in the game itself. I think that it would have been better. I think they would have been better off if they had just had one path, minimal branching, and made a longer game with more variety. Like the thing that stuck out to me playing Star Fox 64 again and almost finishing it in one sitting, because it's not a long game, is that there's nice variety from level to level. Like the looks and feels of these different levels is actually really good. And I think that if they had done kind of more of that out of the gate, I think Star Fox 64, I think I would have felt a bit better about it then. I mean, I just that when that game came out, I remember playing it, finishing it, obviously, because it's not like, it's like 45 minutes or something. And then you get to an ending and you're like, okay. And then it's like, oh, do you want to go back and do more? And like, no, I like this. No. I did not enjoy this enough to want to go back and hunt for other stuff. Like, and so I don't know. I think there's something to be said for putting all of the good shit on the critical path in a game. That's a weird balance, right? Because you want to put interesting things there for people who are engaging deeply and want to hunt. You want to have a reward for them if you're doing that sort of thing, right? You want to make sure that like the hoops they jumped through are worth it in the end. But also, and I think this is something that maybe is more of a thing these days than it maybe it was, 30 years ago. I think players are, they don't necessarily want to replay a game over and over again. Like, I feel like, it's hard to get players to finish a game in the first place. In a lot of cases. So there's something about the idea of putting your best foot forward and going, okay, well, if you're only going to play this once, we're going to give you the experience. We're going to give you like the full experience of playing this game. And you're going to get to see, the majority of this stuff. Like the last thing you want to hear is like, and this is something that I think, I don't know. I'm of two minds of it, because sometimes it's really cool to discover that like, oh, there's this hidden out of the way thing and it's amazing, and this side quest or this or that. And this is something that I think, a lot of the conversation around, some of the Dark Brotherhood stuff and some of the Elder Scrolls stuff, and, Fallout having just some weird side quests out in the middle of nowhere. This is something people like to say about Cyberpunk a lot. When they're trying to defend Cyberpunk, as they say like, oh, this side quest is amazingly written, and if you go over here and talk to this dude, and this is incredible, and they're like, yeah, that's great, man. Like, I already spent 40 hours playing a bunch of very fucking mundane bullshit. So the last thing I want to hear is, oh man, if you had gone and done this fucking other thing, you would have this mind-blowing fucking crazy plot line and all this other stuff. It's like, man, that's a cool story if the main plot is really, really good. But in something like Cyberpunk, where the critical path and a lot of the side stuff you'll encounter just kind of normally along the way kind of fucking sucks, to hear like, oh, look at this amazing thing. You're like, great. Great. Would have been nice to have, been able to see any of that stuff, but I guess I just didn't walk around the right corner. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm of two minds on it. Again, like those people that did find that thing had a much more, a much richer experience, and they feel ownership over it because they kind of found it, and it's like their little thing, right? And I think that stuff is, yeah. Again, I think it's a really hard balance, and it's all kind of a little bit different, right? I mean, the situation with Star Fox is not quite the same as side quests in a story-driven role-playing game, right? It's more just like, the blue area is crazy and the waves are nuts, and look at this bonus level and the fire is wild. But it's the same kind of spirit, and I think different developers tackle it different ways. And I guess, like, ultimately, I don't think there's any one right answer to this, but I do think in the case of Star Fox 64, I think that game would benefit from, even if, and maybe the remake does this, because I haven't spent a ton of hours with it, but something where you could just go like, okay, I saw this stuff and I don't want to do it again. Now show me the other stuff that I haven't seen yet. Like, let me kind of just see that shit, son. Like that feels like a good happy medium there, or something. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a little bit different now. We're not paying cartridge prices for N64 games like we were then, and so Star Fox as a remake hits a little bit differently nowadays than it does then. And I think the new one, it's a really great looking game, and it reminds you, just like, I think the core of that game as a rail shooter, is good, but they've hit a lot of technical problems along the way, right? I mean, these are problems that are easy to look at now, but then, when the original Star Fox came out, no one was really complaining that much about the frame rate, because you were seeing something that you had never seen before, on a Super Nintendo, certainly, and on a 16-bit machine for sure. And so the idea that Star Fox did not run smoothly was something that you could very easily look past, because it was like, dude, it's crazy that this is able to happen at all. And so as a combination of like tech demo and game, the original Star Fox is amazing. If you start to get into the nitty gritty of it and start talking about like the individual levels and gameplay and stuff, I think Star Fox, the original game, is fine. It's a little basic. It's at times a little underwhelming, but that's a very easy thing to say all these years later, right? I remember being really wowed by Star Fox 2 when Nintendo showed it off pre-release. They had these little cockpits and you could sit down. They were meant to look like the tank, if I remember right. And so it was like, you'd get into the little tank thing and you'd play. And I was like, man, Star Fox 2 is crazy. They got you, they got you driving fucking tanks now. That's nuts. And then obviously that game got canceled, and a lot of those ideas got rolled into Star Fox 64, including the branching, the kind of more blatantly branching stuff that they did. And I think Star Fox 64, I think for me, trying to remember my feelings on it at the time, because it has been a long time. It's currently our number one ranked Nintendo 64 game, for whatever that's worth, of the 4 games that have been ranked. Star Fox 64, I think was disappointing because of the draw distance, and because of the, like, it's asking you to hit things that are far away, because you've got your wingmen out there flying around going, get him off me, and you can barely see what the fuck is, what they're trying to run from. And there's a lot of stuff like that, like, for a second game in the franchise, or third, or whatever you want to call Star Fox 2, Like, I remember the interesting thing about Star Fox 64 being the Rumble Pack, that it came with the Rumble Pack. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. I got to put batteries in this thing? Wait, okay, you're going to have games that tell me, okay, you need to use the controller pack to save. If you put that in now and then hit start. Okay, now if you want to use the Rumble Pack, take it out and now put in the Rumble Pack and then hit start again. You're like, what a fucking mess. But Star Fox 64, I don't think benefits from the tech demo, kind of the mind-blowing kind of technical aspects that the original game benefited from, right? That's what the SNES version really benefited from that. Star Fox 64, especially when you take it split screen and the situation gets even worse, it's a chore to look at, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah, I don't know. I appreciate their cinematic approach to the story, at least in the upfront part of it. And I think the remake is pretty well done, and it's nice to be able to play some of that stuff online, and not have to play a fucking split screen video game. And that makes me want to play it a little bit more, because I think dog fighting, we don't get as much of that anymore. It used to be like Ubisoft would put out a fucking very, very arcadey feeling World War II game, a World War II plane game, and you'd play it and go like, this is the most run-of-the-mill average high 6 to low 7 scoring game I've ever played. And it's got an online mode. That's weird. I can get online and dogfight with 16 people. I'm not talking about Crimson Skies, because Crimson Skies was actually awesome. I'm talking about that more kind of run-of-the-mill, whatever ass shit that is sub-Crimson Skies. But we don't get a lot of any of it anymore. There's not a lot of multiplayer dogfighting that is very accessible with a controller and regular people can play. The last like truly great dogfighting game I think I played, well, maybe it was Star Wars Squadrons. That was pretty cool in its own way, but I was gonna say the VR game, Eve Valkyrie. Is it Eve Valkyrie? That's not the turret shooter, right? But the VR, the Eve Online themed dogfighting VR game is still, it was one of the first games I ever played in VR, and is still one of the best, unfortunately, because you could look anywhere and your targeting would move with you. Like, it was a fucking amazing experience. It was one of the great uses of VR, period. And it was, that game was a lot of fun. But we just, I don't know, like you don't really see that kind of low end accessible flight game anymore. Like, not a lot of companies are making them, and it's kind of one of the additional reasons why a new Ace Combat coming out is pretty exciting. Because we just don't get a lot of fucking plane games anymore that like average normal people can play, and not like people who go like, well, I went and bought the front part of a fucking plane, a real plane, and then I put that in my garage, and then I installed some screens on it, and then I got my HOTAS over here. Like, that's stupid. I mean, well, whatever. That's awesome, but like, I'm not trying to build a fucking location-based entertainment center in my fucking garage. Like, for the love of God, what are we doing? So yeah, I don't know. Like I think on that level, Star Fox is great. It's great to have anything like that. I mean, it's not pure in-space dog fighting. Like, you don't really have full range of freedom. Like, there's a ground. But yeah, I guess I came away from Star Fox on the Switch 2 enjoying it much more than I thought I would, considering how one and done I felt Star Fox 64 was originally. And the legacy of Star Fox between here and there, I think, has largely been underwhelming, right? I mean, like, Star Fox Assault was like all right. I'm trying to remember. I feel like a lot of the Star Fox games in the middle there were kind of like forgettable, but I don't know. Is it the case that most people probably just think of Star Fox as the fucking dude from Smash Brothers? And yeah, and then Dinosaur Planet or whatever came out. Sure, Yeah. Yeah, Star Fox Command was kind of neat, I guess, for what it was, but not, I don't know, like not, Star Fox is a tough one to do. I don't know. Like I would like to see them. I would like to see them break away from fucking Star Fox 64. I would like to see them have a clean break from just about everything they've done up to this point and really reimagine what a Star Fox game could be. And maybe and by that I think I mean like kind of get away from the on rails levels to some, well, I don't know, at some point you're just making a fucking flight sim and like I said, we don't get a lot of those anymore, and that's kind of exciting, but we don't get a lot of those for a reason, you know. And so, you know, like at some point you're just making like here's like a bad Wing Commander with modern graphics or something, and you know, like that's kind of that's maybe not the most exciting thing in the world. But if they did something that was more open and more kind of dogfighty, yeah, more Ace Combat like in some ways, I think that could be neat. And you like to think like, you know, hey, they do a remake so that they can stoke interest in a brand new game, but who the hell knows, right? You know, and some of that probably depends on how well this Star Fox game does, right? So we'll see how well it does, and if that leads to something else down the line or not, I guess. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about everything else that's going on right after this. Confidence begins in weird places sometimes, like underwear. There's a certain confidence that you get from knowing that you're wearing the right pair of underwear that fit right, that look good, and more importantly, are not like blown out, dripping off your body, and taking your pants with them half the time too. MeUndies makes fantastic underwear. Summer's coming. Your clothes are getting a little bit lighter, and so what's underneath matters more than ever. MeUndies has breathable, buttery soft fabric that actually fits, and this is what you want as we head into these hot months. They've got a cut for everyone out there. They got 10 different styles of underwear, from boxer briefs to jock straps to their signature ball caddy pouch underwear, designed to keep everything in place right where you want it. And of course, MeUndies has this signature softer than soft ultra modal fabric, and that fabric is breathable, stretchy, cozy. It's perfect for all day wear. You can wear this underwear all day long. They use sustainably sourced materials. They work with partners that care for their workers. And if you're not happy with your first pair of underwear, it's on MeUndies. They've got over 30 million pairs sold and 90,000 five-star reviews. People around the world are making the switch to MeUndies. I'm wearing a pair right now. It's been fantastic. There are some pairs of MeUndies that I've had now for 6 months or more, and they feel as fresh and as crisp as the day I took them out of the package. You know, they last, and that's been great as well. You know, they're a reliable pair of underwear every time you grab them out of the drawer. You're like, oh, good. I got a lucky pick. I picked a good pair. Right now, if you can hear my voice, you can get up to 50% off your first order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Jeff. The promo code is Jeff. That's up to 50% off plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Jeff, and the promo code is Jeff. The Steam Machine Lottery happened last week. If you remember, they took signups for a few days. You could go check a box and say, this is the Steam Machine I would like to pay too much money for. And they would say, great, we'll get back to you. That list of sign up list closed on Thursday, and then Friday morning they started sending out emails to let people know if they made it or not. It seems like the two varieties of email are, hey, you didn't make it and you're on the wait list. We'll let you know when you can buy one. And then a not that different email that says you're officially in the reservation queue for a Steam machine. That's the one that I got. And well, I'll just I'll read the email too. You're officially in the reservation queue for Steam Machine 2 terabyte with controller, which is the most expensive version of that. When your Steam Machine 2 terabyte with controller becomes available, we will send you a separate email with the option to purchase. You'll then have 3 days to complete the purchase before we cancel your reservation and move on to the next person in the queue. This is the only email you will receive about the results of the randomization. If you ended up with a reservation queue spot for more than one model, you were allocated a reservation for the highest end model and were removed from all the others. Which is, so you could have signed up for all 4 of them if you wanted to, but they weren't going to go, oh, you hit it big and you get to buy 4 units. And so, but that's it. I don't know. It's been a handful of days here, and I have not received an email saying you can come and buy a fucking Steam Deck. So I don't know. Like, I wish that there was some kind of further information about, like, hey, here's when you might expect to see it within the next month or within the next week, or like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be checking my email, freaking out every day, going like, because I only have 3 days to get this, or, did it go in spam folder? Like, what's going on? Or if it's going to be a while. So I don't really know where that is. I've not heard reports of anyone in the United States getting an email saying, hey, it's time for you to buy your Steam Deck. I maybe that's happened, but this has obviously been such a strange rollout. It's the Steam Deck is a device that would have been really great as an entry-level PC for people who didn't already have one. Like, its best use case is like, hey, you wanted to have you want a computer, but you don't want to have a computer. So maybe you could get this and that would be a good thing for you to have, because you're used to using consoles, and this is as close as we can get to a console within reason, and so on and so forth. Obviously, the pricing situation, the component shortage has now put this out of range, I think, for a lot of that more casual audience. So, that was Valve's goal. I think that is still Valve's goal, obviously, but I do think that the pricing situation is going to make this an item that only lunatics are going to sign up for, and the lunatics that already, and also they're only taking pre-orders on Steam and all that other stuff. So, clearly it's not meant to be your first computer. You're meant to already have a Steam account. You're already meant to be playing Steam games in some capacity, I believe, so, there's some weird stuff around that, but I do think that, like, that's the best use case for this, right? Is like, hey, you want to be able to play PC games. You've heard about this personal computer, but you don't want to set your IRQ settings. You don't want to get in there and you're like, okay, we got to set port 220 for this sound card. You don't want to monkey around with that stuff. So here's a box. You can turn it on. It boots to a nice display, and you can launch some games. And you're not going to be the sort of performance snob that is going to notice that it maybe doesn't run every single video game at the highest end settings imaginable, because it's a device that was meant to be $700, $800. Now here, several $100s later. It's a very different proposition. Whatever. Like I said last week, I do think the Steam Machine is, no matter what happens with components and everything, and obviously, the next few years are going to suck shit for a lot of that stuff. Like, this is at least moving things forward in terms of gaming on Linux and giving people more options there, and opening the doors for more console-like PC experiences. And I think that Valve is doing a much better job of that, even in light of some games not working on Linux at all. I think Valve is doing a much better job of that right now, this minute, than Microsoft is. And Microsoft seems to have a similar goal with the Xbox mode they've rolled out on Windows 11 and some of the other stuff that they seem to be wanting to do there in order to pave the way for the next Xbox. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's frustrating, because I think this could have been a bigger, kind of more watershed moment for PC gaming as a whole, or just gaming, period, in terms of giving more options to people that might have been scared off by some of the PC-based options that were available to them previously. But that's just one more thing that has been taken from us by all of these AI data center scumfucks. So thank you, AI data center scumfucks, for fucking us again, finding new ways to fuck us every few months. And I'll stop there and not say the thing I was going to say. Hey, speaking of finding a new way to get fucked, Microsoft is raising the price of the Xbox. This price rollout is going to happen on August 1st, my birthday. This is like another. They're going to tack another $100 to $150 onto the price of every single Xbox that they're going to continue to sell. Also, they made a 2 terabyte Series X, and they're just discontinuing that one. They're just straight up like, yes, and as part of this, we're going to sunset this particular model of Xbox. So if you want a 2 terabyte Xbox, I guess get out there and get one, because they're not going to be in the channel forever. Yeah, they put up a post on the 25th just titled "Updated Xbox Console Prices." The price of Xbox consoles will increase by $100 for 512 gigabyte models and $150 for 1 terabyte models. We'll also be sunsetting our 2 terabyte model. And then they reminded, last October, we increased the Xbox console price by $20 to $70 in the US. We hoped another price increase would not be necessary. And we spent the last several months working with suppliers on options. Unfortunately, console storage and memory prices have increased by more than 2.5x. And we expect another doubling by the fall of 2027. Which is not what you want to hear. They also, this is crazy. Xbox is trying to like spin. They're not even trying to spin this. This is like, for a price increase, they're really just kind of taking it on the chin, and kind of laying it out here. These might sound like excuses to you, but it is pretty much the reality that everyone is facing. The entire consumer electronics industry, they say, is struggling with the current components crisis, but the effects are particularly hard on consoles. Unlike phones, computers, speakers, and other consumer devices, consoles are typically not sold at a profit, but instead for less than they cost to make. Today, we are also sharing programs to make Xbox consoles more accessible. And they've got 4 things, and so they spent time trying to cook up, like, here's some ways that maybe you could still afford an Xbox. We've made it easier for players to use buy now, play later options on eligible Xbox hardware purchases through the Microsoft stores, making it possible to break up your payment into predictable short-term interest-free installments. Okay. Interest-free financing. We are working with partners to let players purchase eligible Xbox hardware at 0% APR financing for up to 12 months, giving players more flexibility with lower monthly payments and more budgeting control. It's bad when selling a fucking console sounds like fucking buying a fucking car. That's like, this is fucking dark. This is fucked. This is like unbelievable. They've got a third one here. We're partnering with blood banks, and maybe you can donate some plasma to get a disc. No, sorry. No. Previously played consoles. We are working with retail partners on new programs to provide previously played consoles at lower prices. Players who are ready to upgrade or no longer use their console will be able to trade it in with participating retail partners for cash or store credit. Those consoles will be then made available at lower prices for players. That's, that stuff happens all the time. Like, used consoles like come and go. Like, the idea that Microsoft, the company that is trying to sell these things to begin with, is like, maybe you buy a used one? Maybe you could find one out there. I'd check the fucking newspaper. Maybe there's one out there. Maybe you know a guy. Is there a guy up the street? Is there a lady up the street? Her husband died and he had an Xbox? Because she might want to get rid of it, dude. Have you checked out Facebook Marketplace? Sometimes they spell Xbox wrong and then they don't get snapped up as quickly. So maybe you could find one that way. It's so I don't know what Microsoft's role in this is, if they're going to be subsidizing prices to make them lower, or like what the deal is, but they do say we're working with retail partners to provide previously played consoles at lower prices. So I don't know, because a company like GameStop or any of these other scumbag fucking companies out there are like, they see the price on the new consoles go up. They go, oh shit, we should ratchet up all the used console prices too, because fuck them. And so I wonder if this is Microsoft stepping in to be like, hey, don't raise the price. What if we are they paying some of these companies to not raise prices? Are they trying to make up the beds? Yeah, I don't understand. Like, other than, because this already happens, right? So I don't know. Maybe this gets used consoles into more stores or something. I don't know. And then their fourth bullet point here is certified refurbished consoles. Xbox certified refurbs are available at Microsoft stores for up to $100 off MSRP. And then they point out Xbox Series S remains the lowest cost way for console players to enjoy the biggest hits this year, including Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, Gears of War E-Day, Grand Theft Auto 6, Halo Campaign Evolved, and Madden NFL 27. Which is true, I suppose. That said, that 512 gig Series S is now $500. The cheapest Xbox is now $500. If you want a 1 terabyte Series S, that is $600. If you want a 1 terabyte Series X with no disk drive, that is $750. If you want a 1 terabyte Series X that does have a drive on it, that is $800. And if you want a Series X with a 2 terabyte drive in it, it's double middle fingers for you, pal, unless you can find one out there right now, because they are discontinuing that model. Which is smart, because I'm sure that they don't sell a ton of those anyway. And also with the way that they're increasing these prices, a 2 terabyte Series X would probably be more expensive than a PlayStation 5 Pro, which would be a bad comparison for them. And so those are price increases between 100 and those are price increases of basically $150. Unless you're looking at the Series S 512 gigabyte, then it's only $100 increase. But every other Xbox model is either getting discontinued or the price is going up $150 frickin' dollars. For comparison's sake, a professional PlayStation 5. Now, this is not a favorable, none of these comparisons are favorable because all of these prices are bad. A PlayStation 5 Pro, remember, currently costs $900. $900 fucking dollars. So I feel like, if you're in the market for a console and you don't need to buy the cheapest one imaginable, like you're looking at it and going like, well, do I get a 1 terabyte Series X, which if we want to go like for like, we would look at the $750 model of the Series X, because the PlayStation 5 Pro also does not come with a disk drive. And so, but at that point we're looking for like, oh, well, if you can squeeze together another $150, you get a PS5 Pro, which is a more powerful device. you could make the argument that like, well, the PS5 Pro does not have Game Pass, and so you would have access to more video games with a Game Pass subscription or blah. There's ways you can get there to make the Xbox seem like a favorable comparison, but these prices are now so close together that basically for the cost of 2 games, you could just get a more powerful machine. And yeah, I don't know. That doesn't none of that feels good. As someone who was there, flipping through old, not old then, but flipping through issues of EGM and seeing the ads that would run in the back of the magazine from the like weird little mom and pop mail order retailers, and they would all say like Neo Geo Gold system, $800. If you want a copy of NOM 1975, the price is call us. It feels like that, man. Obviously, the economics are totally different then and now. The inflation, the money is different now. But I don't mean to say it's the exact same situation. But damn, that's too much fucking money to buy a fucking video. If I was a parent and I did not care about any of this shit, so let's say, like most parents, if I was most parents that I've met, if I was a parent and did not care about video games, and I had the equivalent of me when I was 8 or 9 years old, trying to get my hands on every fucking video game console, or trying to fucking like, hey, I want to play the damn video games. And I was like 11-year-old me. The year the NES came out, I would have been 11. I would have just turned 11. If my 11-year-old kid came to me and said, I need you to spend $900 motherfucking dollars on a PlayStation and then sign up for a subscription so I can play online, and also the games are $70 or $80, I would be like, kid, go get a fucking job, dude. Well, you better mow every fucking lawn in this goddamn neighborhood for the rest of your fucking life. Like, can kids still get paper routes? No. All right. Can kids make money anywhere? No. All right. Great. Well, all right, kid. Let me tell you how to start flipping bricks. We're going to make it snow in the neighborhood, and then we'll all have PlayStation 5 Pros. Yes, my 11-year-old child would be over the stove. Yeah, that'd be bad. That'd be bad. I don't know. Like, I don't know that. And you start to realize, like, especially again, if you're a parent who is not in the know on any of this sort of shit, you'd be like, what? I have an old tablet. Here, take that. Play fucking whatever free games are on there. Why would I ever spend that kind of money? That's crazy. Whatever. It's a bad situation. I don't know. Like, I don't, and maybe the scariest part of this is that Microsoft is saying outright, we expect another doubling of these prices by the fall of 2027. So the idea that they will then double on top of that in a year's time is, how are you supposed to launch a new console into this environment? And Microsoft, you can always have a little bit of extra fucking Frauenhausen, because they are so heavily invested into AI. They are literally doing it to themselves, but also it's not that they're doing it to themselves. They're doing it to you. So thanks to everyone involved in fucking all this up. There's been some a little bit more Xbox news. Obviously, the big kind of pending Xbox story is these layoffs that we have heard they are coming, and you got people out there like George Broussard said it's going to be the biggest single layoff in history of layoffs, which maybe George Broussard would know, maybe he wouldn't. I don't really know. Games Beat has a story up. Dean Takahashi is reporting about the union, the Communications Workers of America, kind of speaking out against these upcoming layoffs. And, they have some quotes in there to say, hey, these workers will not be traded as disposable. Treated, I think, is what that should actually say, but I believe that's a typo in the article. And also in that reporting, he does put forth another studio that is potentially on the chopping block. We have heard of Double Fine, Compulsion Games, and Ninja Theory. But Dean is also reporting that Undead Labs, the developer of the State of Decay games, is also potentially up for sale or whatever the situation is here. The exact the exact wording on his article is, it's possible some of the studio jobs will be saved if a buyer is found for any one of the 4 studios: Double Fine Productions, Undead Labs, Compulsion, and Ninja Theory. And then he's got some numbers. If they are shut down outright, Double Fine appears to be about 100 people, Undead Labs will be about 110, Compulsion's about 90, and Ninja Theory about 135. And that he does say, other divisions are also expected to be hit with percentage layoffs. Some people have put Arcane forth as part of this as well. That maybe Arcane would be a studio that could potentially be lost as a part of this. Situation. They didn't have anything to show with Blade back at the showcase, but at the time they were like, "Oh no, Blade's still in development." And we'll see. We'll see, I guess, is the best you can say there. Again, with today being the last day of the fiscal year, this is stuff that could happen as soon as tomorrow. I don't really know. It sounds like that there are some additional kind of cuts not happening within Microsoft proper, but companies that they have contracted with. I saw some reporting that Assembly, which is part of a PR agency called Edelman, and they spun out Assembly specifically to be an Xbox-focused arm of Edelman. It's the external PR company that Microsoft has been working with for years and years. It sounds like that maybe that contract is up, and they are either reducing or not renewing it or whatever, but basically there have already been some layoffs at Assembly based around, Microsoft's changing needs for external PR. We had heard that they were looking to maybe make some cuts in kind of marketing and PR around the edges of some of that. Is this Colonel Sanders in the chat here says, "Oh, so they just pulled funding on IO Interactive's next project, and so there are layoffs there now." So yeah, gosh. Okay, so this is Jason Schreier reporting this. A game called Project Fantasy, or a game referred to as Project Fantasy, that Xbox has pulled out of that deal, and that IO Interactive will continue to develop the game, but they will have to find other funding. The quote from Xbox is, "Xbox is, quote, taking a fresh look at where we invest, so we're focusing on our highest priorities. We're not reducing our overall investment in games. We expect to invest about the same in content as we did last year. What's changing is where we're investing and the kinds of projects we're backing." IO Interactive put out a statement publicly that says, they just say, "A relationship with an external partner on our own IP has come to an end. This means we have to adapt to the new reality and its short-term consequences, including staffing decisions," which is what is happening as we write this update. I heard about this game. Let me see if I can find something real quick here. So it's like a It's like a co-op multiplayer thing. I'm trying to find the right way to reword what I'm reading right now so it isn't an extraction fantasy game, no guns, procedurally generated rooms, and that it is fairly early in development. I believe that is the same game. Either that or Microsoft had multiple projects going with IO, which I doubt. So that is probably what Project Fantasy is. And I heard it was neat for whatever that's worth. Well, yes, that would appear to be what maybe I'm connecting the dots incorrectly there, but that is probably what that is. Let's see here. Anyway, yeah. So yes, so Microsoft is going to continue to make these cuts with these external partners that they can walk away from right now. The layoffs will be right around the corner. And one of the other things that they appear to have put on hold are making deals with third-party companies, third-party publishers for Game Pass. Obviously, subsidizing development, or in some cases coming in late after the fact and swooping up picking up a game and getting it for Game Pass has been kind of the way of things for Microsoft for years now. That has been how they have been building the library of content on Game Pass. Eurogamer has a report on this. This originally comes from a podcast called The Business of Video Games from someone named Fernando Rizzo, who is a partner at a commercial advisory company called Caboodle. So just so you know, but this is coming from outside the U.S. from the looks of things. But anyway, I guess Fernando also was at formerly of Raw Fury. But anyway, basically what came out of this podcast to look at Eurogamer's kind of summary of it is that he was at a trade show in Italy, and that word on the street, this is the quote, word on the street was that loads of people who were in the frame for Game Pass deals, like nothing was signed yet, but they were in advanced discussions. Everybody got the rug pulled out from under them. His kind of further quote is, I don't think Game Pass is over, given that the new incoming leadership have talked a lot about Game Pass. I think they're on pause. I think they're figuring it out. That's my read anyway. For the time being, it seems like Game Pass deals. We just did one at Caboodle earlier in the year, and I get the feeling that we might have been one of the last ones they did. And so, a new leadership comes in and you're unsure about everything in the business. I think it makes sense to put a pause on spending money on these deals when you're trying to figure out what the fuck you're doing. But you would have to have confidence that those people will eventually figure out what the fuck they're doing and move forward, right? I just like it's early days, and I don't want to be fucking nasty about it, but the one thing I have not heard out of Xbox leadership at all, on the record, off the record, like word trickling out, anything like that, I have not heard anything that resembles a true vision for that business. Instead, it's a lot of like, oh yeah, it's fixable. And yeah, the next 100 days are going to be crazy. And we've got to reset the business. But like, there's not a lot of, you don't hear a lot of like, and here's, after the reset, here's what we think we're going to do. Here's going to be the way forward for Xbox. Robert Purchase, who wrote the article over at Eurogamer, actually did contact Rizzo to get some additional details here. And the follow-up quote here is, I definitely don't want to oversell what I know. I'm not privy to any internal Microsoft conversations, but I had spoken to a number of developers that had Game Pass deals in various stages of negotiation who were told the deals were on hold. I don't personally think this is the death of Game Pass or anything, probably just a new CEO wanting to get her feet under her desk and everyone aligned on strategy before the Game Pass team starts cutting checks again. Which I think makes sense unless you're shutting down Game Pass, unless your strategy is cutting so deep that you're just like, well, we think that maybe actually we should be sunsetting Game Pass and going back in favor of just selling everything for full price, which I wouldn't think they would do. But at this point, it's hard to get a read on. It's hard to get a read on what they're really doing over there. And maybe the dust will settle on this, and they'll be like, okay, here's now that we have destroyed this city, here's how we intend to rebuild it. But look, man, I don't think you dominate in video games unless you've got content. The old dumb thing, it's cliche upon cliche to utter the words content is king in this day and age. But if you don't have video games at your video game company, what the fuck are you selling? Because it ain't consoles. You can't just sit there and make third-party deals. Like, the whole point of a first-party company is that you have the portfolio that drags people to your side of the fence. So the idea of them making these games exclusive again, you're like, okay, I guess I see the path there. But when you then say, hey, Gears is not going to come to PlayStation 5, also we're shutting down like 4 fucking studios. Maybe more. I don't know. Like, it's... And maybe the argument there is we need to have games. These are not the right games. To which I could say I could maybe walk down that road, right? I could maybe be led down that road with a provocative pitch. If you told me, hey man, yeah, State of Decay 3 not coming together, been in development forever, what they got ain't gonna do it. So we should just cut and run at this point. Like, we could sit here and pump money into this thing and get it out the door, but it's never going to do the numbers that we need it to do. And so we should just bail on this. If you wanted to tell me from the coldest corporate perspective imaginable, yeah, I don't know, man, Double Fine just shipped 2 things. They're not going to have another thing for like 2 more years. And Double Fine is maybe not, they're not going to have bangers. They're not going to have like the biggest games on the world. And so maybe we need to part ways. Like, I think that's a dumb fucking idea. But I could understand how someone could jump to that conclusion, especially if they don't have a history in games and don't really understand the value of fucking content. I think Double Fine and the studios that I think the 4 studios that they have on the block here, 5 if we consider Arcane to be part of that list. I think those are all studios that are great at making games that make you feel good about being a Game Pass subscriber. Like, look at this neat little thing. It's more toy-like than game in some ways, but like, Keeper is fucking really neat. Keeper is a really, like, you would feel good playing Keeper, especially if you didn't have to go out and buy a copy of it and try to do some value comparison. Like, oh, I signed up for Game Pass because I want to play this other stuff, and then, I got to play Keeper, I got to play, I got to play South at Midnight. Like, a rich variety of games in your portfolio matters for everybody in a first-party position, but it matters even more if you have Game Pass and you need to keep feeding Game Pass. You could argue that none of that worked out, and maybe that's the reality of it, right? Is you're like, okay, yeah, like that's that was the same. You might say that is the exact same logic that got us into this mess. Okay, yeah, maybe. Without sales numbers or without engagement metrics, really. Like, did it move the needle for Game Pass? But I think that there is value in keeping those studios on. There's also value in the knowledge that the teams possess, right? You've got this wealth of knowledge. I think the biggest problem this industry is going to run into, if it hasn't already, and I'm sure it is running into it in various forms already, but the brain drain, the number, the years and years of experience that are just being thrown away. We will get to the other side of this, right? The component thing will maybe not go back down to, we have a story on that later. Components are going to be fucked forever, let's assume, but they'll be potentially less fucked someday. They will find a way to get you to own a console, or like, video games are not going to go away. They will find a way forward for all of this stuff. It may be a little less palatable in some ways, but when you get to the other side of all these cuts and you have to look around you, all the fucking smoking craters that you've created where there used to be studios, you're eventually going to have to fucking make video games again. And who is going to do that? And are they going to be seasoned enough to do it efficiently in this day and age? Are they going to be people who have been through the fire multiple times, and when there's a problem, they know how to solve it without blowing another $5 million solving it? You know? And potentially some of these people think that AI is going to do all the heavy lifting for them anyway. And, well, you know, you like to think that, like, not every single person is as far gone on that AI shit as it seems. Especially as we see more and more companies dropping AI or reducing their AI spend because they walked down that road and realized this ain't it for us. This is not going to fucking save us as a company. It's not going to save us an amount of money. It's not going to fucking help to the degree that we were sold on. And so, like, it's pointless. You see some stories out there, you're like, oh, look at that. They're hiring, you know, like Ford was rehiring a bunch of engineers, I think, was the story I saw. Because they tried without him and went like, oh, fuck, this doesn't work. This doesn't fucking work at all. The AI is a fucking scam. Like, yeah, no kidding. So what do you do on the other end of this? And I think Microsoft is the company that is in it the deepest, right? Because they're the one with the most fix, and they're also the company that has the biggest fucking AI boner of any fucking video game manufacturer. And so they are in the fucking worst case on both ends of it, right? And so on the other end of this, when you have to go and make video games again, who's going to be left to do it? You're going to re-enlist, like, Matt Booty. You enjoy the executive position, but we're going to put you in charge of it. You got to go run a team, man. We need people that have made video games before to go make video games again. I don't know. Like, maybe it is misguided in some way, but, hey, Matt Booty went through the worst of it at Midway. And if there's one thing I've learned from interacting with a lot of people who were there in the latter day era of Midway, is that those motherfuckers can get anything done. They can do shit. They were there when the chips were down. They know how to make games in bad fucking times. So yeah, I don't know. It's who the fuck knows, man. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Again, that's something that might happen tomorrow. If they're rushing through this, and they may very well just announce this on the other side of their fiscal year and do all this stuff. It's hard to really say. In somewhat lighter news, they have added Nicolas Cage to Call of Duty Black Ops 7. That's right. You too can play as actor and real-life individual not Stan Goodspeed, not Castor Troy, Nick motherfucking Cage is in Call of Duty. They have 2 skins for him. It's like they do this thing where they do like a separate kind of little battle pass they did it for RoboCop, and they did it for the Fallout stuff, and they've done it a few different times where it's like, okay, if you buy the premium track on this battle pass, you immediately get the kind of normal looking Nick Cage skin, and then if you complete the battle pass which you can pay money to complete it if you don't want to play the game. But if you don't want to play the game, don't buy Nick Cage to begin with. You get like long hair, ridiculous jacket Nick Cage. It is one of the better skins they have done in terms of it has a good variety of voice acting. That was the big problem with your Snoop Dogg's and your Dave Chappelle's and your Cheeches and Chong's, is that they, and your Rhea Ripley's and what have you, is that they never did enough VO. It's a first-person shooter. If your character isn't fucking speaking, then all you're seeing is an arm holding a gun, and you just nod and go, "That's Nicolas Cage's arm." And you see him when you die, and you're like, "That's dead Nicolas Cage. Look at that." The tenor, like the concept for the voice acting, though, they've done this as part of a package that they're calling the Summer of Action. And also it's coming out so late in the Call of Duty cycle. Like, we're really in this lame duck time for Call of Duty. This kind of happens every year around this time in the summer. They've started talking about the new game, but they still have like 2 seasons of Battle Pass to try to sell you on in the current game. And none of that shit's going to carry over unless you play Warzone, and then they will, then that stuff will probably carry over just fine. But in the main game, no. And so the idea of spending money on Nicolas Cage here in late June, when the next year's game is right around the corner, and also that this year's game is not great, is maybe not the best value. For what it's worth, it's a lot of lines of dialogue about movie stuff. It's a lot, and it's not him saying lines from his movies, which actually is kind of what I actually want out of this skin. And I have not heard it yet. It's possible that it's in there, but I don't think it is. What I would actually want out of this is I want to play as Nicolas Cage. I want to shoot someone in the face, and then I want him to say, "How do you like how that shit works?" And that's kind of it, man. Anything past that is gravy. Like, that's just like, yep, good. Instead, it's a lot of like, again, it's like he's preparing for a movie role, or he's like, it's like, "I've trained for this." Or, you shoot somebody and he says, "Cinema, absolute cinema." You're like, okay, that's not even, I guess you're related to that guy, but that's not your meme Nicolas Cage. And so it's a lot of like, and action, like that type of shit. And I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. Again, by the low standards of Call of Duty DLC, like real life characters coming into the game, it is one of the best ones they've done. But it is, oh, you're right. Yeah, I'm thinking of, it is Scorsese, but he's a Coppola. Close enough. Close enough. All I got to say here is they've committed to next year's Call of Duty as being something that is a little bit more serious on the skins and character front. They're like, "Oh, we hear you. No clownish, whatever." I don't want to live in a world where they can't say, "Dude, we put Nicolas Cage in the game." I think that's overall a good addition. Like, that's fun. When they do it right, when they do guest characters correctly and actually do good VO and all of that, I think that stuff can fit just fucking fine, dude. I don't, maybe you don't do like a Beavis and Butthead. Maybe that's over the line. But generally, I think the guest characters they've done for Call of Duty have at least made some amount of sense. So like when they and this is the first year that they've really said, "Hey, no clownish skins" in a very long time. Like, people like to say that, like, "Oh, they said it about this year's game." They did not. The answers they gave on that question were deliberately vague. Um, it was Battlefield that came out and said, "Oh, we're not going to do any dumb fucking skins." And then people said like, "Oh, what's Call of Duty going to do? Oh, they're going to have to do it. I bet they'll do it." And they never, they did not go on the record and say we're not doing that shit, because they knew they had the content lined up already. They knew that they were going to do that shit. So, so yeah, you know, like I'm kind of whatever. And it ends up being frustrating from just a year to year thing that they're not carrying skins forward. That's a double-edged sword. We've talked about it before, but like, I don't know. Like, I feel like Call of Duty, maybe it's just because Call of Duty is dumb anyway. Like, it's just team deathmatch. You're running around playing fucking laser tag, bing, bang, boom. Like, you're fucking, oh, that guy's fucking arm blew off. Look at that shit. Oh, that gun is shooting fucking red tracers that look like fucking weed. And then I shot this guy and he turned it. Like, some of that stuff goes too far. I think you could rein it in and have it be like less, I don't know. I guess my point is, it should be cool. And sometimes in their pursuit of doing the fucking most outlandish thing possible, they do something that is incredibly fucking dumb. Or incredibly trashy. Yeah, maybe trashy is the word. I don't know. But I don't think like when we think about issues that Call of Duty has had over these last few years here, year to year, guest characters are like pretty fucking low on the list, man. So anyway, that's now available for, I believe it's a limited time sort of deal, because you got to like buy the battle pass, the little miniature battle pass, in order to get access to Nicolas Cage at all. And it's funny, man. So I was checking that out. I was like, I'm going to go play as Nicolas Cage. And when you call it an airstrike, he goes, "Authorization Cage." And you're like, yeah, okay. That's like a cooler thing to say than when Snoop Dogg just said, "I'm throwing my grenade," and nothing else, you know? Like, remind the player, oh, by the way, you're playing as Nicolas Cage. It's smart. It's smart. They added some maps for this season as well, or with this content drop, they put some maps in the game too. And they're pretty good maps. I don't know, man. There's like a weird obstacle course one that's like, it's fun. It's fun. It's too little too late for Black Ops 7. Don't get me wrong. But hey. As a part of the changing leadership over at PlayStation, you know, everyone saw the replacement of Jim Ryan with Hideaki Nishino, as well as, you know, Herman Hulst kind of taking on an increasing role over there. Kind of saw that as like, oh, it looks like that their goal of making 12 live service games turned out to be bullshit, and obviously they're moving away from some of this stuff, but that does not appear to be the case. Video Games Chronicle has sourced this from a Famitsu interview with Nishino, where Nishino has basically said that Sony will continue to back live service games. The quote here is, "That's right, with live service games." I mean, you know, it makes it sound like that it's a problem, right? Like it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's not something that they are backing away from completely. It says, "That's right, with live service games, it's important to keep providing something on an ongoing basis. The genre itself is relatively new, and I imagine many people are trying out various approaches, so we intend to continue taking on new challenges within that context. We view live service games as content that attracts users on a global scale, so we intend to continue revitalizing the market through both first-party and third-party content. We are looking beyond simply promoting new titles and are considering what can be done with older titles over the medium to long term." These quotes in the context of what are we going to do with older titles as you are laying off the entirety or the damn near entirety of the Destiny 2 team is what we might refer to as a little rich. You know, look, no one's going to say Bungie was the perfectly run company and oh, what a model of optimized pipelines for live service content, and they, you know, like let's not put them on too much of a pedestal here. Destiny 2 had its challenges. The fault of that, there are a lot of people who are coming out of Bungie or have been out of Bungie for a while that have a lot to say about the way that Bungie was run. And so, having heard that enough different times, at some point you look at it and go like, yeah, it seems like that the management at Bungie didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And a very, very, very talented team has paid the price for that. Right. So, again, talking about brain drain, talking about like one of the reasons that Sony wanted to acquire Bungie in the first place was to have some expertise in the live service space. And I need to be clear here. Expertise is not always directly equitable with success. I would call Destiny 2 a success, for the length of time that it got updates and all of that. I think you have to look at that whole project and go, yeah, they very much did a thing. It was very, very popular for a good long time. But the people, especially those people who, again, have been through the fucking fire, those are the people you would want your boots on the ground for a live service game, or would be the people who could go, dude, don't, not like that. No, do not. Trust me. We did it like this and it didn't work like this. It would work like this or this or this. Like there's got to be almost immeasurable amounts of experience in that space that just got cut from Bungie. And so the idea that Nishino is out here saying, we're considering what could be done with older titles over the medium to long term with regards to live service games, I think is fucking crazy. That said, the context of that is up for debate a little bit. Like, the quote here is, we are looking beyond simply promoting new titles and are considering what can be done with older titles over the medium to long term. I would assume that older titles does not necessarily mean Destiny 2, but older titles means, oh, could we do a Killzone live service game? Is Parappa back and now you can buy skins? Like, what are, like, are we looking at the older, Mag 2 is going to fucking blow your mind. Yes, Fat Princess is back. And so potentially, who knows? Maybe they end up doing some sort of live service stuff that is rooted in an existing IP that has not traditionally been live service. And so maybe we do end up seeing, Warhawk was one of my go-to games here as well. But I think in theory, you would want to go with a game that is a little bit more known by modern players. Unfortunately, I don't think that Sony has a ton of those. Right? I mean, what would you like? Yes, sure, SOCOM. Yeah, I mean, but like what's a current PlayStation IP? The only one I can think of is, what if they took Ghost of Yotei or Ghost of Tsushima? What if they took that multiplayer game and live serviced it up and did a separate thing? Obviously, they're doing something with Horizon right now. They're doing that multiplayer game. But like, what are the known PlayStation properties that are still in some form of, that you wouldn't go like, oh yeah, they're never going to do that, like a Warhawk, like, Warhawk, they're never going to do that. But like, what would they even do? Like, Uncharted doesn't make sense. Last of Us, they were gonna do it. Maybe they take that work and build a team around it and pick it back up and go, okay, yeah, we're not going to steal the time and livelihoods of the entire Last of Us team by making them work on a live service game for the next 10 years. But what if instead we put the right people in place to do that? Yeah, maybe that would be the thing. I don't know if that would be a great thing, but but sure. But there's not, I don't know, like there's not that much if VGC notes that, that Sony has been canceling live service games as of late. Blue Point, had some ideas around that. Sony Bend had some ideas around that, around doing kind of live service stuff. In theory, Fair Games is still in some form of development. I think I'm on the side now that, if I were a betting man, and I'm very much not, and the question was, do you think that do you think that Fair Games will ever come out? I think I'm leaning towards no on that, but that's not based on any insider knowledge or anything. That's really just like, hey, clearly that thing has had a rough time developing in development, and we haven't heard about it officially in a pretty long time, and so who the fuck knows? Maybe they go through and cancel that too. I would also not be shocked to see a pretty sizable wave of layoffs through the PlayStation studios in the wake of kind of, again, end of fiscal year or whatever, but also in conjunction with how things are going and how expensive the console is. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it. You can go look them up yourself, but we're coming off of May, the month of May being a mind-blowingly bad month for hardware sales. Obviously, the price increases and a lot of the other stuff are starting to be factored into those numbers. And so, in a lot of ways, a new trench has been dug. We've found a way to go deeper. We found a way for this thing to get lower than it has been, right? Because now consoles are even more expensive. And so it's not just, how do we get people to hear about our game? How do we work? Game discovery is such a broken process. How do we figure that part out? And it's not as simple as, oh man, Grand Theft Auto is coming out. It's such a big game. How do we get out of the way of that to make sure our game can find some success? Or, boy, people sure do keep playing Fortnite and Minecraft and Roblox. What the fuck are we going to do about it? How do we get people to notice our game exists in this increasingly challenging market? Now, on top of all of those things, you've got, wow, these consoles sure are getting further and further out of reach for the average consumer. Boy, Microsoft is out there saying it's only going to get worse, and they're trying to find ways to subsidize used consoles. It's, it's not like you couldn't see this stuff coming. I mean, this is just an ongoing portion of the discussion we've been having for over a year now about the price of games and all of this stuff. And I think that it is, I think it's sad that, that video games have to kind of suffer through this shit for something as dumb and as damaging as data center development and AI. I think it's for, like, the tariffs and all the other stuff, also very stupid. The things that were the lead up to the AI problem were just as stupid. But it is so dumb that we've found ourselves in this position where you've got, like, the public sentiment on AI. When people run the numbers on this and the popularity of the technology as a whole is not fucking great. And also, no one wants more fucking data centers, especially in their fucking backyard, where they are fucking polluters and all, like, heavy strain on the power grid. This nation's infrastructure is already kind of fucking going to shit because none of the fucking power companies ever put enough into fucking updating and renovating that infrastructure. I live in an area every single day. I have lived here, I think, 7 years. No, let's call it 6. Maybe coming up on 7, 6 or 7 years. You go to, like, your next door app and like, what are people in the city talking about? What are people in the neighborhood talking about? Every single fucking day, is someone going, hey, is your power out too? Every fucking day, the power goes out somewhere in this fucking town. What the fucking fuck is that about? You've got portions of this country where you simply cannot get clean drinking water. Like, the infrastructure in this country is going to shit. And you want to build a bunch of fucking data centers and just fucking hook them up to the grid and go, yeah. And you got fucking people out there saying, like, it was like a Jeff Bezos quote or something. It's like, well, it's more valuable to the AI will solve these problems. Like, we should put this. I know it actually, that wasn't a Bezos quote because that turned out to be fake. The thing about the water, the Bezos quote about the water was not actually real. But that concept of, oh, well, by the time the check comes due for all the damage we're doing to the environment and whatever, by the time that all comes, the AI will solve it for us. Don't worry about it. We're building the solutions here. Don't worry. This is going to save you. Like, dude, that is some fucking first ones up against the wall type talk right fucking there, man. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? It's unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. Now, of course, as easy as it is to put 100% of the blame for all of this shit onto all of the data center talk and all of the AI horse shit, never put it past the component manufacturers themselves to see a situation and go like, oh shit, there's a good opportunity for us to make even more money on the back of this. Eurogamer has a report here that Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, who are the three largest manufacturers of RAM and solid state storage in the entire world, are being sued with there's a class action lawsuit headed their way, alleging cartel-like activities of intentionally limiting the supply of RAM and shifting away from that consumer RAM and kind of deliberately helping to fuck the prices over. Micron was just out there bragging about their margins on RAM and basically saying they were locking in like 5-year contracts for RAM prices, and more or less the report being like, well, yeah, don't think these RAM prices are going to come down any soon because Micron's locking people in for 5 years or more. This is something that the RAM industry specifically has been caught doing previously. Specifically price fixing. The Department of Justice here in the States fined SK Hynix $185 million and Samsung $300 million, which Eurogamer notes that at the time, Samsung's fine was the second largest criminal antitrust fine in United States history. Micron apparently, Micron, on top of fucking everything else that makes Micron seem scummy, Micron apparently evaded charges by snitching on the other companies. The exact language here, by reportedly helping prosecutors bring the case forward. Great. So we'll see where that class action lawsuit goes. That's something, again, videogameschronicle.com noted that this was filed in federal court last week here in California. And it is alleging that consumers have been kind of hung out to dry on this, and that they're the ones feeling the squeeze the most, and that this is anti-competitive behavior. We will see where that goes. It's very easy to believe, considering that two of these three companies have been really kind of smacked on the wrist for this before. But yeah. And lastly, in the news, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be $80. They announced that with the opening of pre-orders. And now every time you look at any kind of console storefront, it's just GTA 6 all up in your face for the next several months, I assume. There is also going to be a premium edition version of the game that will be $100. And it will come with a batch of content, like some of it cosmetic, some of it a little bit of gameplay. But it's like, hey, here's some additional customization options for cars and clothes, and you get a new garage that has a weapons locker in it, and so there's some kind of seemingly minor gameplay stuff that will be attached to the premium edition of the game. But I will say that after reading it all over, the extra stuff in the premium edition does not seem like it does not seem like anything getting to get all worked up over. I guess if you want that stuff, $20 seems like about the right price for that sort of shit, because it does not seem like a major component to the game itself. Since Rockstar's announcement of the price, there's been like little bits and pieces of leaks from like, what was it, like Amazon Brazil, some out of the US retailer posted a product page that said like it's got a big map, or the type of fucking mindless shit that a product page says that everyone has to go write articles about because it's GTA and that stuff does traffic for them, so why not? $80 is not it is not the first time we've seen that price, but it did not become a regular price after the launch of Mario Kart World, which everyone thought was going to open the door to $80 pricing. I do think that this is the era we're entering into now, and I think part of this is because hardware prices and everything else is so fucked. I do think that where we're getting to now is a greater variety in pricing across games. I think you will see some companies try to go $80 for their game and have it go poorly for them, because I think that only the tippy top tier games will be able to get away with it. If Ubisoft turned around tomorrow and said, "Hey, you want Assassin's Creed, the next one? It's $80," and they're exactly the sort of company I would expect to try it, I do not think the consumers would just go, "Oh yeah." So yeah. And so we're starting to see wider ranges of prices. I think part of that is because, like we've moved away from the fixed cost of goods on burning a disc. And so there was a certain element of like, hey, if you're going to burn a disc and you're going to be on store shelves next to these other full-priced games, you should all be full-priced games, and it should all be here at this price level. And I think everyone just kind of agreed to that for, one reason or another. And I think it largely has worked out. But things weren't always like that. This is something that, again, returning to the Nintendo 64 this week and thinking a lot about that system, but also thinking about the late era of 16-bit games and the pricing that we saw there. We had cartridges coming in at like $100. I want to say Phantasy Star 4 for the Genesis was like a fucking $100. And Nintendo 64 games, the pricing was a little bit all over the place, especially early on. Third-party games were more expensive than first-party games in some cases, because it was cheaper for Nintendo to just use its own stuff than it was for the third parties to buy cartridges from Nintendo. And obviously different cartridge sizes result in different costs of goods. And so, this is stuff that we've seen a little bit with the game key card conversation around the Switch too. But really this is not new. And so I don't think that everyone's going to move to $80 for their big budget games, because I don't think they can all get away with it. And every game is different, right? Every game's going to monetize a little bit differently. GTA, they can get away with it. It's GTA. But I think if you were to go to Call of Duty and say Call of Duty base model $80, I don't think that would go down nearly as well. And a big part of that is because part of the Call of Duty experience is a storefront full of fucking skins and battle passes and all of these other things that they do to monetize. GTA will, in theory, eventually get there with online, whatever they, it's kind of the weird part about this announcement of GTA is that there's zero mention of any kind of GTA online anything. And the press release or whatever like that they put out says that at launch it will have a single player experience that you can play. Obviously when GTA Online, there's cosmetic sales for days there, right? But I think that I don't think that, especially with the kind of iffy quality that Call of Duty has had lately, I think that would be, and they're already taking pre-orders. They're not going to do it this year. Obviously, that ship has sailed. But like you could see a handful of games trying it. Mason in the chat asks, "What about NBA 2K?" I think Take-Two loves to sell games for too much money. I think they were the ones that were like, when this generation started and games started to be $70, they were the ones going, "Oh, fuck yeah. Everything's $70 now." And they've backed down from that. Not every game they sell is at that $70 price point anymore. But NBA 2K is definitely a game that if they wanted to hold people over a barrel and go, here you go, like, and shake the fucking turn out these pockets, man. I could see Take-Two trying to sell 2K for $80 while also selling you all your fucking currency and all the other horse shit that NBA does every year. Yeah. Sorry, I'm on the back end of a, I don't know. My son had an earache because he got an ear infection, and I caught that, but I did not catch an ear infection. I instead got a lung infection, and so I am in the middle of a Z-Pack regiment to get on the other side of that, and that's been fucking annoying. But I'm a lot better now than I was over the course of the last week. But anyway, I think pricing will continue to be flexible. I think companies will charge what they think they can get away with. And in a lot of cases, you'll see games that come out at like $40 or $50. Like, we're not heading for a world where like Invincible Versus comes out and they go, it's $80, brother. Like, it's just not. That's never going to happen. Because no one's ever going to pay that amount of money for that game. In fact, I wonder how many people spent $50 on Invincible Versus, which was what its launch price is. It's currently on sale. That's not me saying, hey, you should go buy Invincible Versus, but it's a game I think of. Like, hey, here's a fighting game, and it's not to say that there's not a lot of content there, but also it's kind of a different value proposition from other games in different genres. And so I think we'll see different games try to do what they can. And so you'll see new IPs or new to gaming IPs, like an Invisible Versus fighting game. And they'll go like, okay, yeah, this will have some appeal, but it's not something we can get away with charging that kind of money for. I mean, even Street Fighter 6 launched at $40, right? They had, they did have a higher end version of that game at launch that you could buy that came with, whatever the year one DLC and, some extra costume stuff, I think. And they do continue to sell years of content. But like, I mean, right now, because the Steam sale's happening right now, but right now, Street Fighter 6 is fucking $20. Yo, Street Fighter 6 is $20 fucking dollars. You should get that. It's good. And so, yeah, we'll continue to see that variety, I think, across the board. for games based on their scope and what we think their audience is going to end up, and like all of that sort of stuff, right? And so as more games do try to break this $80 barrier, or break the $70 barrier, I guess, to go to 80, try to keep that in mind. I do not think that I do not think that we're gonna head to a world where any game of any sort of note is going to automatically be $80. Imagine a world where Microsoft stuck to their guns on trying to price Outer Worlds 2 at $80. They initially announced that game, or when they announced pricing for that game, they thought they could get $80 for it. And that's not, I don't want to say, like Outer Worlds 2 is cool. Like, it had some issues for me at launch that they have since fixed. And I spent some more time with it, but I think, like I had my window when I was ready to play it, and it was at launch and it didn't work. And then I just haven't been able to get back to it. But Outer Worlds 2 is not a fucking $80 game. And when they did back away from that, it was like, okay, yeah. Like they thought that, like, oh, Nintendo kicked down this door for us. They took the bullet on moving to 80, and now here we are. And even I think the justification for Mario Kart World at $80 is super fucking flimsy as well. Because really the only reason they made Mario Kart World $80 was to help justify the cost of their bundle. The only reason that standalone game was $80 was so that you would buy a bundle. It was not because they were like, this is a great $80 video game. Like they had no intention of setting their pricing up at that level for everything across the board. They never did. They merely wanted you to see the value in the fucking bundle, which I think is a very backwards and slightly scandalous way to go about it, to be honest. But that was the brick wall that fucking Microsoft walked into on that one, is they saw Mario Kart and went, oh, fucking sick, dude. Yes, we could do this. We would love to do this. This is great. And then they tried to follow. They're like, we can go. And boom, door shut right in their fucking face. Everyone said, get fucked. Are you fucking kidding me? Get out of here. I think that put a stink on that game that it didn't really shed. Like the pricing thing, they obviously they backed down from that price point and did not launch it at fucking $80. But I do think that it led to, like, I don't know how, I feel like that game, I feel like Outer Worlds 2 just kind of really came and went, which is a shame because, as Fred Chuck Dave says, it's virtually the same quality as Avowed. Yeah. Like, people seem to like Outer Worlds 2. Like I said, it was crashing on me at launch a lot, but, but that got fixed. And Avowed was a heck of a time too, but it sounds like neither of those games really like punched through in a major way, which is a damn shame. Really. Especially in the current environment that every Microsoft owned studio finds itself in. Anyway, and the $100 for the premium GTA 6, like whatever, man. Like anyone complaining about that, I don't really get it. Premium editions of games are often at least that much, if not more expensive for sometimes less content. And it's hard to kind of fully make that consideration considering we haven't played GTA 6. But at the end of the day, when you look at the other games, especially in the Take-Two portfolio, WWE was a game I was talking about last week, and the price points for all the other fucking fucked up versions of the WWE game this year, like they put the situation to shame. So again, these games are currently on sale in the Steam sale, so if you wanted to pay slightly less too much money for WWE, you're allowed. But like the expensive version of this game was $130, man. No, I'm sorry, that's not even the most expensive. Like $130 for the Attitude Era edition. There are like 4 different versions of the game, and they're all like 34% off right now. So, I think that game is too expensive at any price, but what are you going to do? The price you pay for buying a WWE game is more spiritual in nature than actual money changing hands. There's sort of a, oh God, how did I end up with this filth? I can't even make fucking Lawler say, oh, collusion, over and over again. What's the fucking point? But they sold the super expensive versions of WWE, and if you want to break that out into the individual characters you get or whatever, maybe you find that value. Maybe you feel like that's a fair price for the year of content that you get for it. I don't know. Point being, I don't think that the $20 upgrade fee for that stuff is that far out of whack for a bunch of cosmetics and some kind of additional kind of doodads and little gameplay features and stuff. Like, it doesn't seem like they are massive mission chains that you're getting access to. That's hard to say because the game's not out yet, but looking at their descriptions of it, that stuff sounds relatively minor. And so people buying the baseline version of the game, I don't think they're going to be like left out. Unless the game pulls some Roblox shit and every time you walk up to the store that is closed because you don't have the premium edition, it fucking pops a store screen or something. I mean, that'd be some nice filthy business right there. That's it for the news. That'd be nice and nasty. Let's get to some emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. And you can send me an email and I will take it. Max in New Hampshire writes in and says, I recently bought the first 3 Professor Layton games as a set for $40. I popped the first cart into the DS and poked around the save file and saw that Lizzie played the game for over 30 hours and all of the free puzzles distributed by the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection are downloaded. This is such a nice surprise, and I think it's neat this exists considering the service is long shut down, and I miss Nintendo making a big deal about this kind of thing and other services like Street Pass. Do you have a fondness for this sort of thing and hope Nintendo brings back the goofy stuff? I mean, you're just talking about DLC, really. Like, yeah, it's free puzzle add-ons, and I think that's cool. I think the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection thing was a very Nintendo-like solution to the idea of what if these games could get patches or updates or whatever. It's great that you have them because obviously you can't connect and get them anymore. I imagine that there are backdoor ways to get those puzzles onto a cartridge in this day and age, if you want to. If not, then you should take that cartridge and send it to someone so that they can dump that shit out of it. But I love Street Pass. Street Pass was so fucking cool. It provided as someone who did not really play games on the go and was not really, like, most of my time playing portable systems was sat at a desk in front of a television. Because I did not have a public transit kind of commute or any sort of situation where I could truly take advantage of that stuff other than when I was on a plane from time to time. But being able to go to PAX or just like walking around and street passing with strangers, I thought that stuff was really fucking neat. I think it's a shame that they don't have anything like this anymore. I mean, the Switch is still a portable system. It would have been nice for them to have some sort of equivalent here. Because that stuff's fun, you know? But as far as the free puzzle distribution, like that's, you know, the puzzle distribution for the Layton games and most of the stuff that they did content-wise over Nintendo's online connectivity in that era always reminds me of kind of like the last bastions of the Dreamcast's web browser. Of like, oh, connect to the web with your Dreamcast and then go to the Samba de Amigo website and then you can download, quote unquote, 10 new songs. And the songs are already on the disc. You're just downloading unlock keys for them. But it was a reason for you to get your Dreamcast online, which was annoying and frustrating because then it took up space on your fucking VMU and, all that stuff. But not the worst idea. And it was always cool to get new songs, even if the process of downloading those things to your VMU was extremely fucking clunky. Like, all right, load up the Dreamcast web browser. I'm already like, oh no, I don't want to do that. But it was cool that you could do that. I mean, they had you downloading entire quests for Phantasy Star Online back then. And yeah, so like that style of solution for add-on content was always really neat. But we live in an era where every system being sold has like a goodly amount of internal storage for now. And so like that's not as and all of them also have like, well-defined online connectivity, right? And so those sorts of ideas don't necessarily need to exist anymore because they can just come with a regular patch. Like, hey, next time you connect online, it's going to patch the game. We added 10 more puzzles, so there you go. Let's see. Let's see emails. Tyson asks, how often do you find yourself thinking about Space Harrier? It's at least once a week, if not more often than that. But it's at least once a week. Alex from Lowell writes in, a wrestling town. With the recent rumors of Microsoft shutting down a few studios this week, which has likely already happened by the time you see this email. No, not yet. I've been worried about Double Fine in particular and what this could mean for their potential future. They've been one of my favorite studios in the gaming space since the PS2 days, particularly because of Tim Schafer's witty writing. Anyway, I was wondering how you felt about this potential news and also wondering if you'll share some stories in regards to their legacy, knowing that your career saw Double Fine's beginning and likely end. Well, look. Double Fine was always a fun crew. We had some fun interactions with them in the past and did some fun stuff over the years. Before they were acquired by Microsoft, right? And people have moved on, and there's a lot of that. A lot of that in this business. I think Double Fine is an important studio. I think Tim Schafer is a Hall of Famer video game, like a first ballot Hall of Fame video game developer. Like his name has been on incredible video games throughout a lot of his career, and even in cases where the game quality might not qualify as incredible, they have done their own thing, and they have like carved out some really interesting niches around their sort of stuff. I mean, they made one of the few cool Kinect games, Kiln is a game that I don't know that anyone is going to play. But it's a really fucking cool idea of like sentient, like little pottery with eyes rolling around in some kind of MOBA. Like it's a really fucking neat thing. It's crazy. Kiln is crazy. You should look at Kiln. If you have not played Kiln, it's a cute multiplayer game that you just look at and go like, I don't know what the audience for this is, but man, what a fucking cool thing. But I think, you go back to, I don't know, Costume Quest. I'm a big fucking Trenched fan, man. I'm a big Iron Brigade type of guy. That to me was the sweet spot for a lot of Double Fine stuff, stacking, like that whole era. Was a Headlander? Is that there's just a lot of fucking crazy shit that they put out, and I think that's like the industry is better for that. Like video games are better for that. But how do you quantify that on a fucking balance sheet, right? Like that's sort of the That's the rub, right? Is we live in an era where no one can afford to care about the art anymore, or no one cares to care about the art of this anymore, at the highest levels of Microsoft, at least. At least that's what it feels like with the way things are going right now. And I think that's frustrating. I think it's a very frustrating thing. It's a very frustrating situation for that. This is the situation for any of this, right? So when I think about Double Fine, when I think about Tim Schafer in particular, I think that I have to believe that there is always going to be someone out there that is willing to take a fucking shot and fund Tim Schafer's next thing. Whether that's a new studio or whether that's, hey, Double Fine is spinning out and becoming an independent company. Like, you would like to believe that, like, hey, there is some magic there. To this day, and what does that mean? So I look at that as like, out of any of these studios that are on the chopping block, that would be the one that I say the most and go like, dude, there's no world in which this studio can't find some fucking way to keep going. Whether it's under this roof as an independent company, or whether they like, hey, we're shutting it down and we're trying to spin up something as quickly as we can. Like, you would like to think that there is some fucking but like the number of publishers, the number of funding sources that remain that could fund a studio of 100 people like that is a shrinking list, right? I mean, the industry isn't what it used to be in terms of, just like resilient big publishers that would go like, oh yeah, of course we're going to sign. Yes. What is Tim Schafer's next game? We're signing that, whatever that is. We're going to sign it because we know we can find a way. As long as the budgets are in line and all this stuff makes sense, we know we can figure out a way to make the business end of this work. And so I think that stuff is frustrating. I mean, obviously, you go through that documentary, you learn a lot about that studio and why they may have sold. Like, I remember hearing at the time, when Double Fine was, like when we heard about the Microsoft stuff a little before it happened. Just because people and you have conversations. But that a lot of it was like, hey, man, like, running the financials of this fucking sucks. It takes away from the time we should be spending making games, because we have to fucking sweat the small stuff on every single business deal and all this other stuff, and that being independent, like this is draining their ability. So at the time, it made a lot of sense for them to sell the company to Microsoft, I think, because it was like, man, like, we've got to get Psychonauts over the line. Yeah, Colonel Sanders says they were dealing with Starbreeze imploding around Psychonauts 2, and there was a lot of stuff like that, and I think it made a lot of sense. And in an ideal situation, Xbox would be they would be the bean counters that are keeping the fucking heat off of Double Fine so that they can do what they do best. That's the ideal situation for a smaller creative team inside of a large organization, but it's a lot easier for those smaller teams inside that large organization to get lost. And you find yourself, look, like it's not a one-to-one. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but as someone who has sold a small, more independent thing to a large company, it is incredibly easy to get lost in the shuffle. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing. When you get lost in the shuffle, no one's paying attention to what you do. You can do whatever the fuck you want. As long as you're not losing a ton of money, no one's going to come fucking tap you on the shoulder. You're just going to be able to fucking sit there and do your fucking shit. But the problem with large companies is that there's always turnover at the top. And the more turnover at the top you see, the more turnover above you and your small little business inside of this thing, the more those people above you get replaced. They are all getting replaced by people with people who don't know who you are or why you're there. You know? And when I look at the studios on the Microsoft list right now that you know are kind of going around, that's how I feel. You look at the people that are running Xbox right now and you go like, are these the people that I trust to care about one of the deepest portfolios of intellectual property in the history of video games? Like all the stuff that company owns now? We said it back when they were picking up Activision, man. Microsoft owns Pitfall now. They own River Raid. They own Doom. They own fucking Wolfenstein. Like they own fucking the Tech War video game that Bethesda made, you know? Like EA used to be the go-to pull for when you wanted to complain about dormant IP. But I think with this new leadership in place, I don't think this is a leadership that is ever going to truly value any of that property. Say what you will about Phil Spencer, and there's a lot to say. Say what you will about the previous regime that was in place. But they understood the value of what they had artistically. That doesn't always translate into a business case, and so that doesn't mean every game gets greenlit or whatever. But you at least had the feeling of like, dude, this is a serious fucking responsibility. You know? But now the regime that made that purchase is gone, and you've got new people in there who are like, we've got to reset this business. And you don't feel like there's no feeling coming out of that of like, and we know what we want to be on the other side, and we value this, this, and this. And there's no real sense of what their values are going forward other than stopping the bleeding. Like, hey, this business is not healthy. We need to fucking continue to carve off parts of it until it is. And we're going to keep drawing red lines around these businesses and shutting this stuff down until it's small enough to where we go, yeah. And then what? Like, congratulations. You kicked out decades and you kicked out hundreds, if not thousands of years of experience in making video games. What now? And maybe they will tell you the answer. Maybe that answer will be, well, we still want to be in the business of publishing a lot of video games. We just don't want to own all these studios. We'll happily partner with independent studios on the right game, on the right, for the right number, for the right funding. But then you hear stories like today where they're also backing out of this IO Interactive thing. And they backed out of the Contraband deal. And the number of different deals with third parties that they have walked away from now over the last little bit here. The last year or so, I guess. That's not great. And so I think it's a very muddy situation, and I can't help but wish them luck on it, because the industry will be in a worse place if they don't solve this problem. If they can't figure this out and get to a point where they are healthy and making games again, that is even worse. Like these layoffs that were, kind of right around the corner from are going to be fucking bad. It's not just going to be Xbox either. Like, this is stuff that, this is across the board industry-wide stuff that has been going on for years and years. But the fear here that I have around all this is that we're going to lose all the people that know how to fucking ship a game. That know that one weird trick to be like, oh, you're okay, it's not compiling here, just do this. This will be fine. Okay, this will fix this. Like, someone who's got just that fucking insane arcane knowledge because they've been doing this for a long time. and they know how to get shit done. Shipping video games is a fucking intense situation under the best of times, you know? And so you have a lot of people that have learned a fucking lot in terrible fucking times. And to cast a lot of those people aside just because the name on the door at the studio they work with is not making something profitable, I think is crazy. I feel like at worst you should be like, okay, maybe this is not the studio configuration that we want anymore, but we need to find something for these people to do. Because our success probably already lies within these walls. We're just not deploying those resources the right way. But that's not the thing they're doing. They're going to make deep cuts. And some of those people maybe aren't amazing employees, right? I mean, that's shit, shit happens, right? But you're going to lose a lot of incredibly talented people who know how to get this shit done. And that's the problem. And so that's when I look at the situation, you just think like, well, it must truly be dire over there because you simply would not do this. You simply would not throw all of this shit away. It's the Bungie situation, same deal. Like, oh man, PlayStation must be fucking up against it at least a little bit. If they're not going to give this team a little more time to figure out what's next. Especially in a situation where you've got Nishino out there saying, yeah, live service games, we care about this stuff. We want to stay in this business and figure out what to do with it, with maybe some older IP or maybe this or that. Like, again, mistakes were made on Destiny 2. There are people to blame for that. But cutting the entire studio because they didn't immediately pitch a project that got greenlit and not giving them a little bit more time to figure it out, especially with how relatively rapidly a lot of that stuff ended up coming together. It's bad. And so if they're not giving those teams the time to figure that out, that says to me that they don't have the funding, they don't have the money to just let a team sit there and spin their wheels trying to figure out what's next. And I think that gets us back to, my feeling on the Microsoft portfolio is it really feels like that they're not going to leave a lot of room for nuance. They're not going to leave a lot of room for art, if you will. This is going to become an incredibly hit-driven business. It already is, but I think Microsoft in particular will be in pursuit of only the biggest hits. But I don't think that this is... I don't think that they have the IP for that right now. I don't think that they have the properties. I don't think the properties that you would think of as hits over there right now, most of them have been on a downward trend for a while now. Halo, Gears, not necessarily on a downward trend qualitatively, but not in the conversation the way it used to be. Fable seems interesting. It's hard to imagine a world where Fable is like a game changer in terms of sales. And so for them to seemingly shut down or spin off all the smaller teams and just and keep and probably also make layoffs on the larger teams. I mean, it's not like they're going to be untouched. But I think to go through this process and then on the other end to go like, all right, now let's only make the biggest games in the world. Like, with who? Who's going to fucking make them? Who's going to cook up all that new IP because you've tarnished all the old ones already? What the fuck are you going to do? You can't just crank out another fucking Forza Horizon and go, these sell great. Right? We'll see what happens with Call of Duty this year. I think that's another kind of big, kind of swing point for that business. If they can right the ship on that game sales-wise by taking it off of Game Pass and, in Infinity Ward's talking a big game about what they've got this year, and we'll see if they pull it off. And what's up with Bethesda? Right? how much money does Fallout 76 actually make? How much money does Elder Scrolls Online actually make? Is it enough to keep those games going with new updates and everything else? Or do they look at those and go like, hey, like these games, it's not that these games don't make money, it's that they don't make enough. And if we lay off that entire team and sunset those games and blah, 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 then, you know, that's good in their world, right? I don't know. I would think that they consolidate a lot of the marketing and PR resources. That's stuff that is still separate across multiple companies, where you've got separate Activision teams that handle Activision games. You've got separate teams that handle Bethesda games. And then the Microsoft stuff is handled like that by, you know, the teams that they use there. Like, I'm surprised that hasn't happened already, but I would think that just from a workflow standpoint that they would do that now. And that's not a pure elimination of jobs, because I think you've got a lot of, again, institutional knowledge when it comes to how to market a Call of Duty game. I think you probably keep most of those people and bring them into the fold and go, okay, yeah, cool. You work on Call of Duty, and also can you figure out how to market Halo? Because fuck. Because we just cut our contract with Assembly and that, you know, or whatever, right? I don't know. Sorry, I just like, you know, it's such a unbelievably fucked situation. And it feels like it didn't need to be this way, especially when you look at overall, you know, Microsoft's overall revenue as a full company and everything else. Like, not that they should be expected to run Xbox as a charity for the rest of time, right? I mean, they've got to get that division in line one way or the other. That's just how fucking companies work at some point. But what they're doing right now, again, really just feels like either they don't know what they're doing and that's why they're making all these cuts, or they know what they're doing and shit is so fucking bad that they've got to make those cuts. The difference is minimal, right? You would like to think that they at least feel bad about putting these studios on the chopping block. But who knows? Jay from Cupertino writes in and says, Bluetooth sucks for peripherals, so why isn't there something better? Between my keyboard, mouse, headset, and controllers that I use on a regular basis, I have 4 different proprietary wireless dongles plugged into my PC. They all support Bluetooth, but I find the input and audio latency to be distracting. Why isn't there a common standard for low latency wireless peripherals? Do you think we will ever get one? You're right. Bluetooth fucking sucks. For latency on controllers and all of that sort of stuff. It's why all of these controllers come with their own fucking dongle, because they all use like 2.4 gigahertz wireless instead. And that is something of a standard. But it's not a unified enough standard that, like, what you need for a standard is it needs to be built into motherboards, right? Like, and you can't even reliably expect Bluetooth to be on every motherboard these days, because it's not. The dongles are annoying because, you know, they all are like, oh, these all use 2.4 gigahertz and all this other stuff, but none of them are compatible with each other. You can't just plug in one dongle and be like, okay, now I have a 2.4 gigahertz gateway and I can connect my wireless controllers and keyboards or whatever else that way. And that's frustrating because, yeah, the dongles fucking suck, man. It's dumb. It seems like it should be a solved problem. And in a world where innovation was focusing in that direction, it's something I would tell you like, oh, this seems like we'll get there eventually. Obviously, the consoles use their own stuff. Like Microsoft builds Xbox controllers that support Bluetooth, but they also support the proprietary standard that Xboxes use for wireless controllers. PlayStation controllers, I believe, are the same way. because obviously you can connect the PS5 controller to whatever you want over Bluetooth, but I want to say that they work differently when connected to an actual PlayStation. But I can't remember off the top of my head, because the DualSense is also extra weird because it has to, it has multiple connections, because it's got the microphone, it's got the speaker and the controller, it has the haptic feedback, which technically is kind of treated as another speaker in the background. And so it has a lot of needs, which is why that stuff does not work when you connect it over Bluetooth to a computer. You have to use weird arcane configurations to get it to work. But yeah, I don't know, man. And when you get into Bluetooth, there are obviously dramatically different versions of Bluetooth and different codecs for audio and what have you. And so that's kind of not a great situation either. I occasionally look into buying wireless headphones, which is I have 2 pairs of wireless headphones, but neither of them support high-end wireless. Like I can't do lossless audio over Bluetooth with either of them, and so that's dumb. So I occasionally think, like, well, what if I bought a more expensive pair of headphones and then I could do lossless? And I'm like, no, fucking who cares? And I can't even use it for anything other than music because the latency is so bad that, there's enough fucking sync discrepancy when watching videos on the PC. You can't use that shit for playing games because that sucks from a latency perspective. So fuck it, man. Wire it all up. Wireless technology sucks shit, as it turns out. So give up. Michael writes in from Kansas City, Missouri, and says, I've been in the Xbox ecosystem ever since I bought the translucent green Halo Edition Xbox. I bought a 360, an Xbox One, and a Series X, all on their day one launches. Watched all my friends go to PlayStation and PC. I mainly stayed due to my large Rock Band DLC collection. But now that Xbox seems to be offloading everything in what looks like a fire sale, I don't know where to go. I hate the PlayStation UI and storefront setup, and migrating to PC or Windows doesn't seem to stick it to Microsoft in any meaningful way. Plus, the current economics around tech make switching to another platform expensive as fuck. I don't know what to do. Am I just stuck with Xbox at this point? Is there any way for me to make a meaningful statement with my wallet while still being able to enjoy games and support developers? I don't have a real question, just hating how bad things are right now. Yeah. Well, look. I mean, if it depends on what your goals are. If you're really just trying to make a statement with that money and get away from that ecosystem, then keep whatever console runs all your Rock Band DLC. Keep whatever the current machine you have is. Keep your Series X. And next generation, go a different direction. I mean, or just fucking don't. I don't know. You say that migrating to PC and Windows doesn't seem to stick it to Microsoft in any meaningful way. I mean, buying games from Steam, like the whatever amount of money Microsoft makes on a sale of Windows 11 on a PC is not going to be enough to cover the amount of money you were giving them by buying all your games on an Xbox for whatever that's worth. But also, like the stand you're taking is very philosophical and is not going to have a massive effect one way or the other. But yeah, I don't know, man. If you don't like PlayStation and you don't like PC, you can always get a Switch. But that comes with its own set of issues, right? Performance-wise and whatever. The Switch 2 is in a much better place than the Switch 1 ever was. But, it's not as powerful as current consoles, let alone future ones. So, You can always get a Steam machine. I mean, not right now, obviously, but you want to run Linux, you want to play PC games in the fucking most non-Microsoft way possible, then Linux. Linux is the ultimate path there. Or hey, maybe you could just devote a few years of your life to playing every N64 game. That seems like maybe a nice way to go about it. Just ride this out. Ride this out for a while. I would wait and see what everyone offers. Obviously you don't have to make any decisions right now because no one is selling a PlayStation 6. No one is selling the next Xbox yet. Wait and see what happens. And, figure out where you want to go from there. I wonder, because, backwards compatibility seems to be the thing that's locking you into this ecosystem. And we don't really know what the backwards compatibility situation is going to be for Xbox next time out because they're going to be making some changes to what they make and how they sell it and all that other stuff. So it may be that thing gets announced and you don't want one anyway because you're like, oh, well, I guess my Rock Band DLC is no longer going to work on this or whatever. So yeah, I would wait and see. The thing I'll say about the PlayStation UI and storefront setup is you're right. I don't think either of those things are great either, but that's relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. The console runs games just fine. I don't especially like the PlayStation UI or the PlayStation storefront, but I think I would still take them over the Xbox equivalents. And what I would say also is never use the store that's built into the console. Just go to their fucking website and buy it there. You can type in what you're looking for and it's easier to search stuff and buy stuff and just, you can even start the downloads directly from the web browser most of the time if your console's in kind of sleep mode or whatever. And so I wouldn't even, I never touch the PlayStation Store on the console anymore. And certainly not the Xbox one either. So yeah, I just shove that shit aside. Chris wrote in to make the case for controller back buttons in their current form. Last week I was talking about how I wish that they were unique buttons that you could map how you want to into unique features, which on PC you can sometimes do depending on the controller or if you're using Steam input or whatever, but by and large they are just duplicate buttons for the other buttons on the controller. Chris wrote in to say, fuck that, basically. He said, I would really hate if they turned them into just more buttons. I really love having them as just remappable buttons because I find controller bumpers to be very hard to use and very uncomfortable to hit, so I really enjoy being able to move those buttons to back buttons. It makes the Xbox controller usable at all for me, as the bumpers on that one make my hand cramp. He also says he doesn't think the controllers should have more buttons in general. They already have too many buttons as is. With stuff like hold this button while tapping this other button. Every game seems like it needs me to memorize a huge number of buttons and button combos just to play a game. I would really not enjoy having them use even more buttons to memorize. Well, the thing I would say to that, Chris, is that if you had more buttons on the controller, you wouldn't need to do the hold this button while tapping another button, because that's those type of corded inputs and macros and whatever are things that they do because they don't have enough buttons on the fucking controller. So, yeah, I don't know. Also, the thing I say is because I'm not used to those back buttons, I hit them accidentally all the time. Like in an intense moment in a game, I might squeeze the controller and that pushes the back button. And then suddenly he's reloading. And I'm like, oh, well, now I'm dead because now I'm not shooting. Now I'm reloading. And that's the shits. So, yeah, I don't know. I see where you're coming from, but I think that optionally you should be able to map that stuff differently. Especially on PC. where everything gets mapped to a different key on the keyboard anyway, and so I think that stuff would be kind of cool. Let's see if we can find maybe one more here. Doran from New Zealand writes in and says, I was recently watching Gears of War Race to E3, and about 80% of it is Epic wanting to include the chainsaw, while Microsoft was worried it would be too gruesome. 20 years on, is the chainsaw still the most important thing about Gears of War? P.S. The video also includes a quote from Bill Gates, I love that chainsaw. Is the chainsaw, is the Lancer, if you will, a gun with a chainsaw mounted on it? Is that the most important thing about Gears of War? They would tell you that it is the brotherhood between Marcus and Dom. Their shared story, their relationship, the love they make. I think the chainsaw gun is the most iconic thing about Gears of War. If you think about it from an influence perspective, I think the way that Gears of War did active reload as a mechanic, we saw a lot of games use them. Games still use that to this day. And I think the popularity of that, I think you could say that the wave-based co-op survival shooter thing that they did with Horde mode has been a very influential thing that they have done, that a lot of companies have used in their own games in the years afterwards. And so I think that's been a big deal. Cover mechanics obviously were a big deal for a long time, and now they've kind of fallen out of favor. And they rarely evolved. You know, cover became sort of a more automatic thing in some cases, more contextual as opposed to hitting a button to do it. That's not something that they came up with. I mean, you know, you could look at Kill Switch or, you know, some other stuff that kind of uses that style of cover system. But Gears certainly popularized it in a way that made it very influential for a time. But if you're asking, is the chainsaw gun the most important thing about Gears of War? I suppose with zero qualifications on that, I would say yes. If you wanted me to get into it a little bit deeper, I would say that the way that they handled campaign co-op was a very big deal for its time. The way that they tried to not break for cutscenes and instead did the walk and talks, I think that stuff, as far as like approaching this from an immersion perspective, I think that stuff was pretty good. Until it fell out of favor, and now it's very easy to talk shit about the walk and talk fake cutscene thing these days. But when we think about, you know, a lot of times cutscenes had to load, and you had to load from the cutscene back into gameplay, and like, you know, that procedure was kind of a hassle. And so the way that Gears did it, I think, was pretty fucking solid. But yeah, I think if you're trying to sell Gears of War to a new audience and trying to focus on like what's the coolest thing we can show somebody, even after all these years, it is still get a load of this fucking gun, dude. I'm cutting a dude into bits with the chainsaw that's on it. I think that's probably still your biggest calling card for that franchise. Which maybe is not a good situation to be in. That is the thing, one of the few things you can hang your hat on there. But yes, I would say it's probably the most important thing about that franchise. It lets you know what you're in for pretty directly. Like, you see that chainsaw cutting through a monster, these big football pad wearing dudes, and you go like, okay, all right, yeah. Bryn says the Lancer is less cool than a chain sword like in the Warhammer 40k games. I don't know. A chain sword is just a sword that moves a little bit. You know? It's still like the objective is the same. It just cuts dudes. The Lancer can also shoot. If it was a gun blade, then maybe we'd have something. Brent says swords are cool. Swords are cool. Thus, swords don't need to have chainsaws on them to be cool. Sword combat is already cool. Kev from Liverpool writes in and says, at Forbidden Door, which was the AEW pay-per-view that happened over the weekend, Kyle O'Reilly used an NES as a weapon. Personally, I think he should have used a GameCube, as he could have really swung the handle, and the GameCube had a nice heft to it. But I need a scientific opinion. Which console would you take into a gimmick match? You know, as far as I can tell, when you go back and look at what Kyle O'Reilly did, he had that little moment there where he blew into the cartridge and then put it into the NES and then hit a dude in the face with it. Which I don't know. I don't know what the cartridge. We were looking at freeze frames of it, and I couldn't get a good look at what the cartridge was. Regardless, I'm pretty sure, having seen that sequence a few times now, and maybe I'll have to go back and watch it a few more times, I don't think he pushed the cartridge down. I think he just stuck it in there. Which, at that point, what's the fucking point? Why even do it? Oh, it was confirmed that the cartridge was pro wrestling? Good. Okay. Yeah. Good. I don't like it. I don't like to see video game consoles of a certain vintage be abused like that. And though that said, I bet that it still works. I bet that NES did not break as a part of that process. But to answer your question, yeah, what console would you want to hit somebody in the face with to do the most damage? I mean, it's the original Xbox. That thing's like the steel chair of fucking... Like, they should be putting Xboxes on people's chests and then doing double stomps to them like they were fucking cinder blocks. But yeah, any cinder block spot should instead be an original Xbox. And yeah, GameCube has a handle, so you could whip it around pretty fast and knock somebody with it. But I think the weight of the Xbox, with the Xbox, what you're doing is you're doing some fucking Rob Van Dam shit. Like, you're taking an Xbox and you are fucking throwing it directly into someone's fucking face. And telling them, like, hey, fucking get a hand up, brother. Like, you are fucking throwing that into someone's fucking face with that. And I think that would be probably the best way to deploy an Xbox inside of a match there. But yes, that is the most solid brick of a console that I think I think you would want. Bonus question: which controller? Yeah, so they did a spot. They had NES controllers wrapped around fucking dudes' necks, and they were fucking doing lariats with controller cables, and it was a very brief moment in a very ridiculous match. Which was fun. It was a very fun match for a match that I had almost zero interest in going in, story perspective wise. It ended up being quite good. I was like, yeah, no, this actually was super fucking fun. But a controller, yeah, Kev says it has to be the Duke, right? I mean, yeah, I guess the original Xbox controller is probably the best bet there. That is probably one of your heaviest controllers. I would say a Jaguar controller, but I don't think that's actually as heavy. So yeah, I would probably go that way with it. real silly. I mean, in the pantheon of video game controllers and things like that being used in wrestling spots, that is, I'm almost certainly one of the most high profile uses of ones ever. I mean, there was that Fighter Fest where they dumped a fucking bunch of Sanwa buttons on the mat, right? And that was real dumb. And then, yeah, the controller ended up wrapped around Kyle Fletcher's arm at one point, and that had a real like barbed wire wrap kind of looking thing there for a minute. That I was like, this could get extra dumb, but they did not go that way, thankfully. But yeah, no, it was a fun spot. Though again, there's a part of me that was very much like, I don't like the idea of this video game system being abused like this. Like that was my gut reaction to it was, oh, you don't need to do this. This is not good. Don't. There are plenty of those left, but also it won't be that way forever. Let's not. Hopefully that console was already broken. But we'll see. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's make this the last one. Sean writes in from Santa Clara. What are your thoughts on the Switch 2 a year into its life cycle? Have the design and build quality of the hardware held up, especially with kids? My take is in handheld mode, it's okay for kids around the house, but I don't see it being portable the way the Switch and prior handhelds were because of the size. What do you think about the software library in terms of Nintendo's output, as well as the state of third-party support? The Switch 2 is holding up okay as with the kids. So they have a Switch 2 that they use, and I have another one now. I got so frustrated watching them use the Switch 2 that I have a second one that I don't let them touch ever. And this is before they ever got their hands on it, so I think there must be something with the dock, but a lot of the paint on the kickstand is shaving off and revealing the chrome, like the raw metal underneath. And that was happening before they got their hands on it, so it wasn't like abuse of it. It was just going in and out of the dock. I've heard that is an issue with some but not all Switch 2s, so I guess I'm just lucky. For me, the big problem with the Switch 2 is that the Joy-Cons are loose and they don't fit tightly into the system, and they flex a little bit. That was a problem again on day one. That Switch did that, and I was like, man, this sort of sucks. That has gotten noticeably worse after the kids have used it for the past 4 to 5 months. And that has been depressing. The rubber on the Joy-Con analog sticks is now rough to the touch and wearing away. I have no idea how that's happening, but what the fuck they are doing to cause that. But it feels weird now. It's rough to the touch, and also one of them feels like it's about to peel off any fucking day now. That one of those rubber covers is going to come off. Which happened with the Switch Lite. They were using the Switch Lite before I started letting them use the Switch 2. And I found it one day with like one of the Joy-Con, or I guess they're not Joy-Cons on the Switch Lite, but like one of the rubber covers was just completely off it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like I fit it back on there. It wasn't a big deal. But that's frustrating. And also a small choking hazard that can come off of the console, which is annoying. And so like from a hardware perspective, the thing still works just fine. The screen is dirty, but I clean it from time to time. I have been working on instituting much better hygiene and much better care around food, because I have run into situations where I have picked up a controller and it has been disgusting. And so, okay, I know sometimes mom will give you some Cheetos. You cannot fucking play video games and eat Cheetos at the same time. I will never let you touch any of this again. I've let them, I've started letting them play on the PC because I have this, it's why I put Windows back on this machine, because it was just, games were taking forever to launch and all of that weird shader stuff on Bazite was just breaking forever and all of that. And so I put Windows back on this machine and now it launches into Steam Big Picture mode and whatever. And that has been an interesting experience. And it's been how I've been thinking about the Steam machine now. As like, it's most of the way there, but not quite. I have cleaned some gunk out of this Steam controller. Let me tell you, it's gotten some crumbs on it that I've been very frustrated about. It's my own fault, really. I'm going to get a bunk controller, a totally functional whatever controller that I just don't care about, and I'm going to let them use that instead of the actual Steam controller because it is starting to bum me out. But they will be playing it, and then as their fingers get crazy, they will knock the charging puck off of it. They will slide the charging puck off, and it will drop to the ground here in the garage on my cement floor, which I don't feel good about. The controller's been dropped 2 or 3 times. The left Joy-Con on my Switch 2 has a weird dig in it, like on the notch that like at some point it fell and got fucked up. That's not great, but it has been interesting watching kids use all this stuff because it's not great. It's not fucking great. So from that angle, I think the Switch 2 has held up just fine. But again, the stuff that seemed to be build quality issues on day one have been mildly exacerbated by after a year of the kids. Well, not a year, about 6 months of the kids using it, because I hid the Switch 2 from them for a good chunk of time. But then eventually enough Switch 2 games came out that I was like, okay, all right, you guys want to play Donkey Konga? Okay, here we go. Donkey Kong Bonanza, not Donkey Konga. If they wanted to play Donkey Konga, that'd be a different situation, man. So yeah, I don't know. That stuff's been, it makes me glad that they don't have to worry about discs. They don't have to worry about putting discs into a system because that shit would have all been broken and destroyed by now. So at least there's that. But yeah, it's not a great situation, and also Steam Big Picture mode is not quite kid friendly in the way you would want to, because it's a little too easy to get into some weird esoteric store page that you can't quite find a way out of. Some games don't launch right, and also PC games don't have good universal ways for you to quit out of them. And Steam does not enforce a situation where you can only have one game running at a time, like a console would. And so you have situations where I will come and they're trying to play Bluey's Quest for the Gold Pen or whatever, and it's just running like garbage. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I grab the controller for them. I lean over to the keyboard and Alt-Tab and realize they've got 3 other games open. They've got like the Spyro trilogy, the Crash trilogy, and Street Fighter 6 all running in the background. Because to quit Street Fighter 6 is especially bad. To quit out of the PC version of Street Fighter 6, you have to back all the way out of whatever mode you're in, back to something close to the main menu, but not all the way out to the main menu, because the only prompt there is hit any button to get into. So you have to hit the button to get back to the main menu, then you hit start, and it's your full option screen full of fucking all the different things you can go to, and then you have to go down and hit quit. That's a fucking bad situation for a kid. Now, me, I can do that, or me, I can go fucking hit Alt F4, but the idea here is I'm not going to let them use a mouse and a keyboard on this machine. It's hooked up to a television. And so I pull the keyboard out and I will Alt F4 the other 3 games that are open. because Steam doesn't, the Steam big picture mode, like you can force quit games from there also, but you have to go into their pages to do it, and so like even doing it from there is not a great situation. Once you've got multiple games open, that's an even worse navigation problem than the Street Fighter 6 example in a lot of cases. So yeah, it's not ready for young kids. The Steam big picture stuff, like Steam OS, like all of that. I think there's still some functionality that they should probably build into. I mean, for to kid proof it, to dummy proof it, like whatever, because every PC game is going to be different about quitting it from inside the game. And you can always just pull up the Steam UI and go to quit game. But if you've already fucked up and launched multiple games, that's not going to do what you want it to do. The other thing is sometimes games just launch bad. This Crash Bandicoot trilogy, it's not a new release by any means. And it's not something that you run into all the time. But every time I launch Crash Bandicoot here on the PC, it launches full screen, but it tabs away from it somehow. And so you can't hit A to start it. You're stuck at the title screen unless you grab the mouse and click click it because it's already full screen, or Alt Tab over to it, and then it will accept input. But for whatever reason, when it launches, Steam then suddenly takes like the primary window, but Crash is still showing full screen. And so that's a bad situation. But whatever, there's always going to be edge cases with all of this shit. It's just been interesting to see a lot of them as as I have unleashed multiple children on this interface and be like, oh, dude, like if you thought this was going to be something you could just give to somebody and go, and it's just like a console, like, dude, it's not there yet. It's really close, but it's still just enough to where like, you should probably know a little bit about what you're doing. These are not problems they run into on a PlayStation, for example, because they can navigate the PlayStation UI just fine. They know how to get to the catalog of games and see what else we own and download games from there. Same with the Switch. They don't run into problems on the Switch 2 until they are trying to download games and the storage is full. Then they have to bring it to me, and then I have to like deal with them crying as I say, I have to delete these games. They go, no, like, don't worry, we can download them again if you want to play them again, but they don't fit. Not all of this fits. We have to make some decisions here. It'll be fine. And yeah, it's been very interesting. I've learned a lot from letting the kids loose on some of these platforms and seeing where the friction lies. Because like I thought that the Street Fighter 6 UI thing was like minorly annoying. I'm just like, oh, this is a weird way that they made to quit this game, but I don't know. Sometimes PC games are fucking terrible about quitting. Like Destiny 2 is really bad about quitting to desktop from inside the game and whatever else. But letting kids loose on it, I'm like, oh, dude, yeah, there's like a whole cluster of new problems that crop up as soon as you do, and that's been very interesting. And that's going to do it. You know what? Last question. One more. And I'm just going to take his PS. Scott wrote in from Ohio and said, in 30 years, will we be looking for copies of Conquered and Redfall in a landfill? No, they didn't make enough of them for that. And those will just end up on some secondary marketplace somewhere. Like, I bet there is not a huge warehouse full of copies of Conquered by now. And Redfall, and also, the vast overwhelming percentage of game purchases these days are done digitally anyway. And so physical print runs are not what they used to be and whatever. I've got my copy of Conquered. I'm ready for the end times. That's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for writing in with your questions and such. Again, that email address is podcast@guard.bike. And yeah, send me some emails. I keep getting Lukes in the mail. We're up to 15 Lukes, and I just got another email from the store, from the place, from the PO box, that there are at least 3 packages there, and my guess is that all 3 of those packages are going to be full of Lukes. So thanks to everybody for keeping them coming. The home for wayward Lukes keeps growing. We're out of space on this NFL Blitz machine. I don't know where I'm going to put more Lukes, if there are indeed more Lukes in the mail. And don't pay full price for your Lukes. I bought a Luke at full price. That's, we talk about a year since the Switch 2 launch. Yeah, I bought a Luke for $40, and now these Lukes are $5. So, don't pay full price for Amiibo, especially Amiibos. And I'll be back, I'll theoretically be back tomorrow. I feel a lot better, but this is also the most talking I've done in about 3 or 4 days. And so I lost my voice over the weekend, and it's mostly back now. Yeah. This many hours of speaking turns out is lightly unpleasant, but I'll probably be better tomorrow, or continue. I'm on the mend either way. So I'll probably be back tomorrow. We'll talk some more. And I will see you then. Head over to jeff.zone. You can get an ad-free version of this podcast, bonus content, and more. Have a good one. Bye-bye.